Greetings and hallucinations, everyone. Jonathan here, coming to you live from Oregon, and super blessed to be alive, and just grateful to have this experience to be able to share, my own personal journey of development and transformation with you for the greatest good of humanity. Because sometimes I feel as if I'm on the cutting edge of, evolution, as we all are. I mean, essentially that's the point, right? Is that we're always living on the edge, and they say if that you're not living on the edge, well, you're taking up too much space. So in the name of not taking up too much space, I'd like to share with you a recent revelation that came into my field of awareness around radical transparency, open communication, being able to be vulnerable in an age where authenticity and vulnerability are oftentimes getting quieted by fake news, mass media, and fear campaigns. If you haven't watched the movie The Great Hack yet, it's essentially about how we are being manipulated by marketing campaigns due to the availability of our data online for free. And so essentially it's like we are putting ourselves out there, right? We're putting ourselves out into the world. We're saying, hey world, this is who I am. This is, how I'm showing up in the world. And then marketing companies are going around and trying to use that information to manipulate us on a mass scale. That's kind of a different story, right? It's a little bit of a different story than what I want to talk about today. But essentially I had a really epic experience recently. I was at the Beloved Music Festival, and I was flowing around the campus. It was early arrival, and I had this really powerful experience because the first workshop that I attended, I actually had no idea what it was. I was just kind of walking around the campus. It was early arrival, and when you get early arrival to a festival, if you don't already know this, it's kind of nice because you get an extra day to kind of like get comfortable in the environment and kind of flow around and meet people before the masses move in. And if you've ever been to Burning Man before, you definitely know how this feels if you get early entry, because then you get to see the population of 70,000 people inhabit a city in the middle of the desert. And it's coming up here in just a few days, actually. Burning Man's coming up, and I wish I was there, but I told my friends, I was like, I'm not going this year because the theme is just too spiritual for me this year. Metamorphosis, what's up with that? So yeah, I just wanted to share this though, because I'm walking around the campus, and the first workshop that I walk into, I don't know what's going on. People are singing, it seems to be a spiritual experience, and suddenly I hear someone just scream in the front of the room, and I mean, they are weeping. They are just like, I thought maybe they're having a bad trip, like what's going on here? I got a little bit closer, and then suddenly I realized that this is actually the first workshop of the event, and it's a grievance ritual. And where in essence you have a group of people, maybe 100 to 150 people, holding space for anyone that needs to grieve. And that means to cry, to release, to surrender, and to let go of the holding on. Because a lot of times we hold on, right? And I would know this as someone who, experienced sexual abuse as a child, as a kid. I held on for many years. I hold on to the story and the pain and the shame around all of that, right? And it wasn't until I embarked on that journey, that deep transmutative rite of passage, that led me to finally being able to hold the capacity to be able to authentically communicate what is alive inside of me. And when I say what's alive inside me, I mean what is the living story, what is that living library, that cosmic Akash, the Akashic record that is me in this particular timeline. What is inside of there, and what would happen if you were to maybe let that story go? What would happen if you would make the decision to just share, to just speak your truth? And essentially, that is what we do also at the Ecstatic Awakening Retreat that's coming up in a couple weeks in Spain, where we learn the art and the practice of deep, authentic communication. and we have expert facilitators, and these guys, oh my God, have literally single-handedly changed my life by going through this program. I mean, it's just like every time the layers and the depth of understanding the importance of being able to share what it is that's going on in your life and being able to be vulnerable. And I want to resurface and represence the definition of vulnerability that I got on Google just now. Vulnerability means susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. Whoosh, that does not feel very comfortable. To be susceptible to physical, emotional attack or harm. So why would we want to make that sexy, right? Like, why would we want to go about, making vulnerability sexy? Like, why would we want to be vulnerable if we're suddenly susceptible to a physical, emotional attack? And I believe that this is the old paradigm towards vulnerability, because I know that in many cases, I know for myself, like I was taught like to be a man, right? What does it mean to be a man? To be strong, right? To be hard, to be, just cold, right? Like, no, I'm not soft. I'm not a woman, right? I'm not a woman. So what's the opposite, right? We need to redefine what it means to be vulnerable. To me, vulnerability means to be confident enough and grounded enough in your own understanding, in your own wisdom, in your own capacity that you are able to speak to anyone about anything, especially if it's something that is triggering you or something that is alive for you, if it's something that is causing you emotional distress, if it's something that is, making you think twice, or if you're like brewing on it, right? You're lamenting, or maybe you're even like it's festering up inside of you, right? Someone said something to you that triggered you, right? A trigger is like an emotional response that oftentimes happens unconsciously. A trigger, I might say something in this video that you'd be like, oh, that triggers me, right? And then you have an emotional reaction, a flare up of the ego. And the ego's like, I don't like the way he said that word. And you're just like patiently waiting. No, he's going to resolve it. And then he never did, right? And then I get hater comments, right? That's okay, because haters going to hate. Haters going to ain't. As my brother told me when he was 5. So to be susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm. Now here's the thing though, is that when we're vulnerable, we're opening up our heart. And here's the thing, you guys, yeah, sure, maybe we're susceptible to emotional attack or harm, but here's the thing, most people don't want to harm you. If someone has a good heart, chances are is that they're having the same emotional discoherence. There's a discoherence of your energetic fields. There's something that's out of alignment, and it wants to be brought into alignment, because guess what? When you do, that brings ease, not dis-ease. Right? To just like surrender into the flow, to be like, hey, you know what, like, brother, hey sister, I just want you to know, like, I care about you so much, and I also have something that is on my heart that I really need to get off of my chest, and I was just wondering if maybe I could share this with you. I want to be vulnerable right now. I want to be totally transparent with you right now. And that's why I titled this video, Authentic Vulnerability in the Age of Radical Transparency. Authentic vulnerability means you fucking mean it. So many of my clients, I'm just like, okay, like, you got stuff like with your mom, right? Like, you got stuff with your dad, you got stuff with, an ex, right? And it's like, well, hey, have you thought about maybe doing some Ho'oponopono? Which essentially means to forgive, which also requires an apology. And their ego's like, oh, no, flare up, right? Flare up of the story. What I mean by flare up is like, it's like a result of an unconscious program, like an identity, like a storyline that you unconsciously identify with as part of your ego, right? Our egos being who we think we are, not the old definition of ego now. We're talking new definition of ego, which is who your brain thinks you are, who your mind thinks you are versus who you are in this present moment, the conscious presence of you. You are more you than you've ever been right now in this moment. Now, in this moment, you are manifesting at the speed of light, and you are not your story if you don't choose to believe that anymore. And this is very hard, and this is the leading edge of human evolution. I repeat, this is the leading edge. This is the next phase of human evolution, to wake the fuck up and remember that we are connected to that infinite source of creativity, that infinite source of creation that is the divine, that is creation. It's the essence of creation. It's that cosmic orgasm that you are made from. And when we tune into that frequency and that presence, it's like, it doesn't mean that you're going to dissolve the ego forever and all of a sudden you're going to forget who you are and you're just going to be a Zen Buddhist monk sitting at the temple watching the flowers, grow because that's all we are supposed to do. No. It's just more of an unfolding awareness, a deepening of our understanding that we don't have to be triggered by our stories emotionally. It means that we do not have to react unconsciously emotionally, because when we do, we're satiating our body. We're emitting these neurotransmitters that are stress hormones that are essentially telling your body that you're about to be attacked by a lion and you better fucking run. But you're just sitting at your computer desk writing emails, right? We're in a fight or flight state, and when we're in fight or flight, well, guess what? It's not a good time to heal. That's not a good time to manifest infinite timelines. It's not a good time to tap into your cosmic oneness with Source and open up and unfold into the infinite fractal dimensions that are waiting to be activated through your awareness. Not when you're in fight or flight. When you're in fight or flight, you're in constriction, right? You're collapsing into matter, like physical three-dimensional matter. You are collapsing into eons of ancestral trauma that are hardwired and encoded into your neural pathways, and you're just collapsing into it more unconsciously, totally unconsciously, right? Because like our ancestors, they actually had to fight a lion, right? The closest thing you're going to get to fighting a lion is going to the zoo with your mom, right? So when we make that decision to ascend, this is that whole ascension thing that we keep hearing about, right? We're ascending beyond the old story, which it could only happen in this present moment now. We are then no longer susceptible to the triggers, and we then become like Neo in the Matrix, where he's like, there is no spoon, right? He's like, I know how to fly helicopters. I know Kung Fu, right? Oh shoot, someone says no audio. Uh-oh. Can you all hear me okay in Facebook and Instagram right now? Can you all hear me okay? To that person that texted me, you may... Oh, no audio. Okay, interesting. Jonathan, we would love to hear you, but we can't. Oh my gosh. Ha! I wonder why. That's so odd. Well, sorry to all my friends in Instagram land. You can switch over to Facebook. But I love that I've had an equal amount of viewers in Instagram, but just hopefully lip reading, which is good. I will be more eloquent and effective in my lip reading communication. Okay, I'm gonna end Instagram then. That's embarrassing. So instead of having a trigger from that, I'm just gonna go with the flow. Cool. So let's see. So I want to go back to my story. So there I am, witnessing these people at this grievance ritual, crying, and I'm like, whoa! Like suddenly I realized, like, this is a ritual where I have permission to release any grieving that might be encoded inside of me. That where I have full permission to let go in this moment. And so I was like, but I at that point I had done like a little tiny microdose of some psilocybin, right? Like I was just getting like warmed up, like gracefully flowing into the weekend with just like a little fat little stem, right? And I was just like, feeling and sensing and opening up my heart to the community and to this shamanic ritual that we go on in these beautiful cosmic collaborations of these festivals, right? And so Christy says, I can. Good. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. And so I go into this space and I'm like, I don't really have that much to grieve about, like, because I've done so much grieving in my life. I mean, I have grieved for everything. But in this moment, so I was like, like, maybe there's something in there, right? Like, maybe, like, like, maybe I could do it, right? So I just, like, but I wasn't, like, really hyping it up. Like, I was just more, like, tuning in and like meditating, and all of a sudden I just like started to sense into the grievance of the people that were in the room, and I started to actually channel into their energy, and like it was this energy just started moving through me, and I was like, whoa, like it was like, and some tears would come into my eyes, and I wasn't even like crying about anything in particular, but suddenly I was like, I would start to cry. And immediately, the moment that someone pops in this grievance ritual at Beloved Music Festival, someone is immediately there to put their hand on your back and comfort you. Oh, right? Don't you wish that that's how it was in reality when you were crying in your room by yourself? Like someone's just there to comfort you. And that's the whole thing, is that this is the somatic experiencing, they call it. Somatic experiencing is to release the experience, to release the emotion, to have the experience, and to release it, and then to reassess and to re-alchemize and to re-experience it from a higher degree of awareness, or you could say from a higher frequency. Because when you change your frequency, you change your awareness. Just by changing your awareness, you're changing the electromagnetic field or the electromagnetic signature that you're emitting, right? And so I was able to, just start channeling people. I was, like crazy. I was like, I wasn't getting attached, like I wasn't going to attach myself to anyone's energy. I know a lot of empaths, which I'm totally an empath, like a lot of empaths identify with like, oh, I take on other people's energy, right? I'm like, okay, well, how long have you been believing in that? Like, how long have you affirmed that affirmation into your daily practice of affirmations, right? It's like, no, I'm a clear conduit. I'm a channel for Source to give rise through. I'm a channel for Source to create through. I'm a channel for Source to become into greater forms, to higher degrees of order, to more syntropy and organization. So I started to just open up this channel, and there was a few times where I was able to weep and I'm not going to actually do it on the camera here. I mean, this is all about radical vulnerability, but like, no, not right now. So I just like had this beautiful moment. Then I just like, I started to like realize that, whoa, I was actually channeling other people's grief. And it was a really beautiful experience. It was as if I was channeling that experience. I was channeling it for the whole world. And as I went deeper into this journey of the medicine and the journey of the community and the journey of the storylines that unfolded before me, it was like I was suddenly, like, the channel of grievance had opened, and I was just having these waves of emotion that would kind of roll through me, these revelations. And it felt so beautiful, and I reflected on it in that moment as I went deeper and deeper and deeper into the journey. And I just started to realize, wow, I have done so much of this radical vulnerability work, this radical communication work, that I've gotten to the point to where I'm actually able to be a clear channel for that energy to flow through. And that is my hope for you. My hope for you is that from this moment forward, you can become a vessel for radical transparency, authenticity, and vulnerability. To truly mean what it is that you're speaking, to say, you know what, like, hey, I just want you to know, like, I know that, like, I was righteous in what happened. Like, I know that I still feel, like, my ego feels like it was right in what I said, but I want you to know that I'm sorry for what happened. I'm sorry for the miscommunication, and I just want to, clear the air between us, because you know what? I would much rather clear the karmic energy and the energetic frequency between me and someone versus holding on to that frequency, because guess what? The more that you hold on to that, the more you drink the poison, you say, right? The more that you hold on to, old resentment, you're just like holding on to the resentment. And that's where you get to the point where you finally, like, when you have the revelation, like when you really get this, you say, you know what, I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to start making those phone calls. And one by one, it's exactly what I did. Christy says, I have applied and invested abundantly in myself, and my sad narrative constantly waiting for me, moments of ease. Beautiful. Thank you, Mike. I like these wise words. And I like, honestly, you guys, like, this is my life's work, right? Because when I finally worked up the courage, when I finally trained myself enough to be able to tell my parents that I was sexually abused as a kid, that is when I finally eventually got to the point where I embodied the capacity to even call my perpetrator, and had done enough work as a shaman and as a practitioner, as a metaphysician and a creator, to be able to hold space for me and him to have a ceremony over the phone, to be able to cut the energetic cords to that person. Completely liberated. When you do this liberates timelines, this liberates karma, this liberates energy. You suddenly have more energy flowing through you than you did before, because you're no longer feeding those old energy vampires, right? Those old programs that, if you keep nourishing them with your awareness and your energy, well, you're gonna keep making them stronger, right? You're gonna be feeding them, because they thrive on the story, and they thrive on your attention, and they thrive on your awareness. And a lot of times we have these what do you have them in your belly, they're like viruses, but not viruses. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. Parasites, and we can have parasites in our belly, right, that say, oh, I want more sugar, right? And then there's a story that's attached to that need for sugar, like, oh, I need it to feel whatever, right, because I'm tired or I'm exhausted. But there's also parasites that are more energetic parasites, and those things can be cleared. And if that's something that you feel that you need, definitely reach out to me, because this is something that, like, once we start to remove that frequency, we clear our energy body, we come into deep and radical alignment. We're communicating, we're sharing, we're no longer holding back, we're clearing the energy, and we're tuning our bodies like instruments for consciousness. That's when we can fully show up, right? That's when we can fully show up to being the greatest expression of ourselves. Because source, creation, creator, God, the living universe, is creating itself through you, as you, with you, and it wants to fully and radically express itself in this lifetime, and it doesn't want to have to do it in another lifetime through you or through your soul, right? Like let's get it right this time, because what else are we gonna do? Go to work from 9 to 5 and then get drunk all day? Like, come on, there's a time and a place. Don't get me wrong. Like, Jesus turned water into wine. Like, hey, like, what's up? Like, we got to get down. You got to get up to get down, right? But you got to get up to get down, right? Because if you're just getting down all the time, well, then you're just gonna be down at rock bottom. So I hope this serves. I hope this speaks to you guys, because like I feel like it's one of the most important things, and it's part of the culture that I've been really a part of in the recent years of being one of the facilitators at the Ecstatic Awakening Retreat, and falling in love with ecstatic dance as one of my favorite shamanic rituals that happens on a weekly basis in cities around the world. And it's so available and so awesome and so healing and freeing and liberating and energizing and activating, just like all the good things that you could possibly get. Part of the ecstatic dance culture is radical transparency, and the whole thing is like, there's no talking, so it's body language, and there's no touching unless it's invited. But if you're not invited verbally, well, how are you going to be invited? Well, it's through body language, and there's a way to read people's energy, to feel into people's energy. And from that came contact improv, which is an ecstatic dance style, but it's where you're touching bodies, but you're not touching hands, because there's no ownership there, right? Isn't that cool? It's like it was built, it came from that culture. And then from that came the new emerging culture, which is radical transparency, which is like this, open ability to share what is really going on, and to not be afraid of what other people are going to hold against you, and to not be afraid that like someone's going to judge you, but rather to just fully show up as who you are, and also to not judge people, but to hold space for them for what they're going through at every moment. This is our job as the evolution of consciousness. This is our job as being part of this global family, this one human family, as our beloved Martin Luther King always talked about. He would talk about creating the beloved community. And that's what we created at Beloved Music Festival last weekend, and that's what we created at the Ecstatic Awakening Retreat happening in Spain, the 1st until the 8th of September, and we have a few spaces open still. If you're interested, please reach out to me if you're interested, and would love to share more with you about that experience. If you're in Portland or in the Pacific Northwest, I would love to invite you this weekend to an event we're doing called Biohacking and Future Mapping for Leaders and Luminaries. Biohacking is essentially taking full ownership of your neurobiology, of your epigenetic expression, of your neural programs, your unconscious programs, your consciousness, and essentially tuning your body as an instrument for the evolution of consciousness. And while also creating a strategy for your future, that which you want to create, that which you're calling in more of. And so if that is aligned for you, if you're in the area, or if you want to fly out, we have a couple people flying out to Portland. It's taking place in a historic home, a historic mansion in Portland. And then also excited to announce a couple other upcoming events, including in Guatemala in January. We're going to be doing the Vision Quest Eagle's Nest, which is a shamanic journey into your future, creating a strategy for 2020. And it's at the beautiful Lake Atitlan, Guatemala, which is like the most beautiful place in the world. You guys Google it, Atitlan, in San Marcos. And that's going to be a visioning workshop and retreat. We're going to be doing a big ecstatic dance party, lots of like tantric expression and connection, and really just a beautiful, nurturing, soul activating way to start the year. So this and more, if you're interested in teaming up and dreaming up for a one-on-one sacred strategy, intuitive life path and design session, I would love to show up for you and channel for you. The channel has been getting clearer and clearer, as if you were looking into a cosmic mirror, guiding you to deeper depths of your soul on the journey to us all becoming whole. When we become whole, we become one. We shine like the sun. We elevate our frequency to the divine so that we can tune into the oneness with every single person on this planet, so that we can flow with it and create with it and start to rise and shine and dance. Because this life is all about celebrating, and so I invite you to come and celebrate with me this beautiful divine design destiny flowing through me. Oh my gosh, what? Coming to you guys live in the flow, sending you all the love in the whole wide world. Until next time, see you in the flow.